I'll clap.
I'm trying to remember why I wanted to make a video essay about the show. I think it grew out of my interest in making videos that mimicked the object they were about. I had done that for my video essay about the rehearsal. Instead, he foregrounds his own manipulations and ethical lapses, designing the series to purposely prompt accusations of unethical filmmaking. What about my own ethical choices? Is it okay to stage reenactments of moments that might have never happened? And I've taken inspiration from the brilliant videographic work by Lého Galibert-Laîné, like Forensicness and Watching the Pain of Others.
En observant l'ordre dans lequel ces images avaient été arrangées, j'ai commencé à comprendre d'où venait mon sentiment de confusion. Parce que je me suis aperçue que l'arc narratif du film suivait en fait une trajectoire double.
So I asked them to offer me some advice about this practice, and that conversation became this video. When I started this project and trying to figure out how I was going to do this, one of the main inspirations was your work, and I really would love if you can just help me make sense of what I'm actually doing.
Let's see what I can do. So you're asking about mimicking the form or some of the method of the object that you're studying, right? What do we do when we do that?
Yeah.
I think I have been trying to envision that as a sort of exercise in intellectual empathy, trying to get a first-hand experience of a thought process that is not familiar to me or that is not mine originally.
Empathy. I have to say, that's not how I thought about what I was doing with the show about the show or Kaveh Zahidi. My goal was to understand how the show worked, trying to mimic its form to deepen my analytic understanding, not to increase my empathy with its creator.
Something that watching your draft made me think about is definitely the limitations of that practice of mimicking the thing we're trying to understand, because of course, if I were a psychologist trying to understand the mind of a serial killer, going around killing people would not be the way to go, right?
Note that neither of us are implying that Kaveh is a serial killer.
Now that we're extending, trying to think about, applying that method to other objects, and especially an object that does seem problematic, whatever we, however we want to define that term, and it seems to me like the maker himself would agree. Maybe it's even trying to be problematic in a way. So if that's the case, then the question is, what is at stake in replicating that? Or what aspect of it do you want to replicate versus what others it would be more productive or more ethical, more respectful, whatever, to avoid replicating?
This really resonated with me, as Leo highlighted how I felt uncomfortable mimicking a lot of Kaveh's practices. And this touches on the core reason why I wanted to talk with them, as Leo had developed a concept in videographic criticism that I felt applied here.
Which was the concept of variation, trying to think of this gesture of critically replicating with the purpose of understanding better. And that was too long, so I compressed that into this term, this concept of variation, which comes from musical theory, right? You have a theme and different variations of the same theme. I was interested in variations for this term for a lot of reasons, because it's not definitive. You can have many variations on one theme. It's not hierarchical either. The variation is not better than the theme or the other way around. They just sort of coexist. So I was interested in that. But also I realized today it's also about changing, right? Every variation is different from the theme, or it's just the theme. Like the idea of variation involves at the same time repetition and change. And that is what your piece got me thinking about, was like, precisely this question of what do you need to replicate depending on what you're trying to understand.
Leo's comments helped me realize something. The tension between change and continuity is the very tension at the heart of serial storytelling. And so much for me, what makes the show about the show interesting is its serial form. The fact that each episode has a different status to the previous episode. And I would say one of the major things that I'm trying to accomplish through this video essay is to create a serialized episodic structure where each episode does different things.
I was wondering, because as far as I think this is where you end chapter 2, right? With the question of like, there is the question of what have I learned or what am I learning?
Yeah.
Because the truth is, I've been really upset since I watched it. It was really upsetting to me watching the 2 chapters. And probably I would be even more upset with the original show that I haven't watched, and it doesn't make me want to watch it, to be honest. Because it made me angry.
Angry at me?
Not primarily angry, maybe by proxy. But I can see you're trying in a way that I don't think the creator of the show is trying. And by trying, I mean specifically like what you currently have at the end of chapter 2. I understand this may change, but the exchange when you invite him to do a Q&A with your students, and you have one student who asks about objectifying women and whether that's something that he's reflected on. I find his answer so illuminating because she asks, has making this show led you to reflect on your own mechanism of objectification, etc.? And he answers no. No. So, and that's super interesting because this means to me that the show is very literally not reflexive because he's not reflecting. It's specular at best. He's like looking at his reflection and fascinated with it. So it's mirror-like, but I find like for it to be reflexive, he would need to have an answer to the question, so have you been, self-reflecting, and what did you find out? He had made before this film called I Am a Sex Addict, right, where it's sort of similar method, but with the focus on, from what I understand, what he self-identifies as an addiction to sex.
My last 2 marriages fell apart because I used to have this sex addiction problem, and I don't really have that anymore. Well, at least not in the way I used to.
It is extremely difficult to hear him respond to this student by dismissing her perspective and saying, we are all objectifying each other all the time, and generalizing his own experience when he's made a movie that supposedly the whole argument of it is that he is special, right? He's not everybody's an addict. He's making a film about him having this condition, if you want to call it that, or the specificity of his experience. And then he goes on to tell us and to tell this student that her question is not valid because supposedly everybody has those drives. So it was really...
Okay, I've got to pause here because I need to hear Logan's reaction to Léo's analysis.
I think that that's completely right. I feel very seen. Honestly, I think what you can't really see about the show in the first 2 chapters is that you're watching Kave's life, just the shit hit the fan. You're watching him face the consequences for these actions. And I think that that is what's so compelling about it. It's kind of awesome watching someone that you don't really like or identify with make bad decisions and face the consequences of those decisions and like still be able to empathize and care about it. I think it's no different than other reality TV. Like, I'm a big Real Housewives of Beverly Hills fan, but I don't like Lisa Vanderpump. I think she's kind of a terrible person, but I love watching her do things. I think that there's something so interesting about that.
All right, back to Leo.
Even when your student tries to express criticism, and I'm thankful that she did, and I commend her for daring to do that, really. Even if she does that, she has to preface it by saying, I love the show, I deeply admire you as an artist, but... To which I would like to say, Logan, if you're watching this, you don't have to love the show. You don't have to admire the artist. It's okay to hate both the artist and the man behind it. And you don't want to be in the room with him, and you don't have to watch the show either. That's okay.
Yeah.
The way that he dismisses the question by explaining that it is not legitimate, that the question should not be asked, I felt was really textbook gaslighting. Which is interesting because that is what I feel like his protagonist is doing in the show, as much as I can tell, again, from the excerpts that you've been presenting in your video essay, that there's an element in the way that he is always playing with the is it real, is it not real, element of it that's creating a situation for us, the viewers, that is just putting us in a constant state of not knowing what we're looking at and questioning everything that we feel because we don't know whether it's real or not. And that's the position of being gaslit. By definition, is like not knowing what is real, what is not real, because someone is being violent in front of you and telling you that's not violence, that's love. And you're like, okay, I don't know then. The concepts don't apply to truth anymore.
I'd never thought about the term gaslighting as applying to the show about the show, but Leo is right. In many ways, it's the inverse of those ambiguous reality check moments I talked about in chapter 1. Even though Kave's mantra is all about radical honesty,
all I know is that I feel compelled to be honest about these things. And the idea of not being able to do that feels like death.
it's a presentational form of honesty, staged to perpetuate his version of truth and reality. It might prompt a reality check moment for viewers along for the ride, but for the people in his life, his version of radical honesty is a form of gaslighting.
It was really illuminating, that moment for me in the video, saying, like, I guess finding an anchor for my rage, but also understanding, again, like, if I can, step away from the anger and get theoretical again. But I don't think those two things need to be opposed, by the way. But I think it's interesting to think about, and the contract of trust that he is, I think, pretending to be establishing with the audience members, but at the same time, playing with this impression that we may not be seeing reality, that it may be staged entirely, and having the certainty that some things are staged, but always sort of being in that middle ground, which I guess is one of the things that you are replicating in your video essay by staging certain scenes and having moments that are presented as documentary, and I don't buy into it. I think it's not. I think it's staged.
Okay, so now Leo is turning their critical eye toward me.
Like, for instance, the break room scene where you have a colleague coming in, having his lunch.
In the entire college.
Yes! This is the only space.
I don't believe that.
Do you enjoy being mean to me?
I don't know, but I would tend not to believe entirely the student who storms off of the classroom when you're doing your experiment in faking reality.
Newsflash, what? You're not Nathan Fielder.
I feel like that's something you told him to do. And he's acting really well, but everybody's laughing around him.
So, Evan, what do you have to say for yourself?
Sorry, guys. I was acting.
The students of yours earlier in the video that you say that they told you about the show, and recommended it to you, and then you ask why. And all of those conversations.
Abby, did you recommend the show about the show to me?
Yes, I did.
Interesting to me content-wise, because there is an element I would like to understand if they recommended the show, why they liked it, when I was so upset by just watching 10 minutes of it. And why they would recommend it to you. Like, all of that, if that is true, is something that I would be, like, my curiosity for that has not yet been entirely fulfilled by what is in the current version of the video.
Yeah, really. Like, it felt like there was a divide with, like, the female students in your class. And
Thanks. That's helpful. I think I'll use that.
Yeah.
And scene.
Okay.
Do you want to go on the record to refute anything or not? Or
No.
in case, there's a hearing or something,
Yeah.
What are we learning? What are you learning? What are you trying to learn? What do we get to learn thanks to you and this complicated dispositif that you're establishing?
Leo's criticisms of Kave's work and persona raised so many great questions about what I was doing in making a video essay about the show.
Yeah, I think to me it needs to challenge us and make us question how much attention we've been paying to that sort of work, how much attention you're paying to it, making this video essay about him, and us spending time talking about him this afternoon, where we could be talking about other makers as well.
Here I am, imitating Kave and his work. Does that uncritically affirm it? Is there a way to make a variation of the show that critiques the very approach that I'm embodying here?
I do feel like all of it is legitimate. I think, I'm not saying it's the only thing we can do as researchers. It's also probably very important to address and be explicitly critical and explicitly challenging of these objects that do get praise. And to me, it's interesting thinking about what you did for your second chapter under this light, because on the one hand, I see you on screen, of course, asking Logan how she felt after Kave's answer and letting her have the final words of sorts of that interaction. So that seems to be an action that you're taking and a decision you're making in the editing in terms of who has the final word. But I also see you staging that scene. Maybe it wasn't staged. It doesn't change anything to what I'm trying to say now. Staging that scene in the break room at your university when you yell at your colleague for coming in the shot. And that makes me question why. Not just like, what are you understanding research-wise through this situation, but also, why should there be yelling? Does it need to be aggression? Can it be fiction? Maybe it's equally interesting if it's fiction, but it doesn't involve that sort of aggression, maybe. And I feel like it goes in the direction of aggression because of the nature of what you're trying to replicate, which is, again, a show that seems to contain a lot of aggression. And maybe that's one way of, going all the way back to the first question we talked about, which is, how do you sort through what you decide to mimic and what you don't decide to mimic in your method, in terms of exactly what does it have you do of your day? Like, what are you making with your time when you're working on this? And to what extent are those actions, and it could be anything, fun, engaging for the people involved, or interesting intellectually, or emotional in a way that's productive, but also potentially, recreating situations that still continue the cycle of, violence being repeated over and over again.
This was such an interesting question. Why did I stage scenes of me being belligerent and argumentative with colleagues and my students? Partly, it was to capture an aspect of Kave's personality to include in my variation, but I was also trying to be entertaining, creating engaging moments that undermined my centrality and authority in the videos. Partly, I just wanted people to laugh at me and think I was being kind of an asshole.
The situations where I have been replicating something is because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why, and I didn't understand how, and I wanted to experience it through myself, my body, my brain, as a way to understand it. But the question is, do you feel that? Do you feel the need to understand why Kave be a belligerent director on this? Because I'm not intrigued by that.
No, I wasn't trying to understand Kave's internal motivations or inner life. I was trying to make an interesting, thoughtful, and fun video. Good TV. And that might be the ultimate answer as to what I learned about this project. I'm not that interested in radical honesty, either as a way to live my life or how to present myself on screen. Everything in Chapter 2 was staged and controlled, except for my dog Pesto yawning. That was his free will captured on screen. And I learned that I like being in control. I don't want to just let the cameras roll and see what happens. I did that in Chapter 3 here. My conversation with Leo was freewheeling and beyond my control. I think everything we both said was honest, and I hope my edit did them justice. So I'm comfortable with intellectual and critical honesty. And this process has led me to find the show about the show both more interesting and less enjoyable. But in terms of living my life, I don't want to be radically honest in front of the camera. When the camera's on, I want to be in control. And I want to control my own actions and those of the camera. And I've grown to think that Kave is more interested in control than honesty, at least in terms of how he presents his life to others.
Do the fucking scene, Mandy. I told you just to learn the fucking lines. Yeah, but your emotional pressure
is like a problem.
It's upsetting when you keep doing this thing every fucking time we shoot.
But one thing I did come to appreciate is how doing this type of work allows me to live my life as a project. Since starting these videos months ago, I keep wondering at every moment, would this be good footage? How would I incorporate this into my video essay? Hey Naomi, I'm wondering, so this shot is kind of boring. I'm just wondering, is there a way that we could get like a bigger vista? Like if you could kind of crane up and we could see like where we are in the larger landscape?
Yeah, okay. We'll do that.
Great. So I guess in that way, I empathize with Kave's process. So this project, like the show about the show, is pretty self-indulgent. But it's differently self-indulgent than the show, largely because the different sense of selves between me and Kaveh. And I guess that's as good a place as any to conclude this project. Is that good? We got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I have to run.
Sure.
But thanks.
Okay, see you later.
See you soon. Bye. Pesto, good to see you. Thank you, Logan, so much for watching him. All right, Pesto, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk. We gotta do the stairs first. Let's go.
Imagine
you got it.
I do. I think about the day.
Come on, Pesto.
It's only right to think about the girl you love.
Already.
Hold you tight, so happy together. If I should call you up, invest a dime, and you say you belong to me, release my mind. Imagine how the world could be so very fine, so happy together.